What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Talkin Wellness, presented by South Florida Wellness Network. My name is Christian.
And I'm Kayla.
And today looks a little bit different. As you can see, Michael sadly is not with us. He's not feeling well, so please send him all your love and support in the DMs or messages or however you want to.
Sending you wellness vibes.
Wellness vibes to him, please, so he can get better. And that way, next year for our first episode of the new year, he can come back strong and we can get this party started for the next year. Today we have a very special topic, kind of like we alluded to last week on last week's episode. We're talking about the end of the year, reviewing the year, resolutions, what went good, what went bad, what we need to work on, and hopefully we can kind of have a conversation a little bit into how can we use these things to grow and to better our wellness journey. So it's a little bit of a different setup. It's only going to be the two of us and everybody listening to the podcast. So it should be a fun episode regardless. So Kayla, take it away, please.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm really excited about this podcast, particularly because I think that this is probably one of the most important times for me every year, because I do a year-end reflection, and then I also set my intention for the new year. And so what that can look like can be different for each person. For me personally, when I do a year-end reflection, I go through month by month and think about like what happened in that month, maybe some of my experiences. I think about some of my achievements, accomplishments. I also think about the challenges I've gone through. Yeah. And I actually really love to, this is what I do every year, is I actually journal. So I start journaling right after Thanksgiving, because I give myself like a month to really put everything down on paper, to go through each month and actually spend time reflecting and thinking about my previous year.
Yeah, I've actually been doing that with my peers. We've been getting a lot into writing and journaling and expressing how we're feeling on a piece of paper. And I've seen it with my own eyes, the impact that it can have. I had a couple of peers this past week where we did the activity, and they were like, "Oh, I never written anything like this before. I've never done anything like this before." I'm like, well, this is a great tool to help you kind of like reflect on not only the past year, but just any situation that's happened, like let's say you had a loss in your family. And I like to tell people that if you have a loss in your family, and let's say you couldn't say goodbye, that doesn't mean you can't say goodbye. Write it on a piece of paper. Imagine it's a letter to the person, telling your feelings, what you're happy about, what you're sad about, whatever, right? It could be a great way to kind of like study yourself, study your emotions, and really dig deep into how am I doing right now with any situation. For
sure. I think there's so much power in writing, and some people find it hard to write, and for those of you that, actually writing, with a pen and paper that find it hard, you don't have to. You can type or you can text talk. I actually started doing that too. I create notes and I text talk. So you'll see me like talking into my phone, some of my thoughts that I've gathered. So I use all three forms, but really like for me, when I think of reflection, and I wrote some things down, like reflection turns experience into insight.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Experience into insight.
Yeah, because when you think about like, we constantly are moving through life, and we are, rather than human beings, we are human doings oftentimes, right? So we're often, I know for myself, like I find myself just like on to the next thing, the next action. And I think there's so much value in the time that we take to set apart, where we may be alone in a space where we can really think through and reflect on our experiences. And so I put down a few notes of, when reviewing your life. And this is just to give you guys an idea of, if this is something that you're interested in doing, a year-end review. We still have a few days till the new year, but so I would say get started now, but even setting yourself up to say, you know what, next year I'm going to do this. So I'm going to give you guys a few tips. So when reviewing your life and reflection, look at each experience and ask yourself these three questions. Okay. So the first question that you would ask yourself based off an experience is, what do I feel? This taps into your intuition. So when you tap into your intuition, oftentimes, like when we listen to ourselves, we have a feeling about something and we start to explore that, it actually gives us some form of insight. The next question to ask yourself is, what do I know? this taps into knowledge. It taps into reality, right? This is where we get the facts about the experience. So you have feelings, then you have facts. And then the third question you ask yourself is, what do I think? So this is where you spend time thinking about the possibilities from this experience. So good thinking takes everything to a higher level. And that's why I'm a passionate thinker, because I think that when you tie in what you feel, which to me is the heart, and then the facts, right? What you know, which is the mind, and you tie those two together, it's super powerful. And that's what thinking can lead to. So for me, you know, my year-end reflection really has a lot to do with that. And I go through each month and I think about the experiences of each month. So all of that being said, Christian, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, right?
No,
He didn't know I was going to do this, but
yeah.
I
See,
wanted
this is what
to...
happens when my Kayla's in here. I get put on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to tap into, you may not have done a year-end reflection. It sounds like you're starting to incorporate some of these practices.
Yeah.
But I want to tap into kind of what was your highlight of 2023? And then also what has maybe been the greatest challenge that you walked through in 2023?
For sure. The biggest challenge, you know, it's funny because I feel that the biggest challenge and the biggest, you know, success, if you will, kind of go hand in hand, because this year was a year of big moments in my life, a lot of them, anywhere from from when I turned 23 till today, now being 24. This year has been really, I want to say, life-changing in a lot of ways. But this year specifically is the first year where I had to take a step back and kind of examine my life. And I kind of find out that I was struggling with things that I didn't realize I was struggling with, you know, with a lot of feelings that I had deep inside and a lot of emotions that I wasn't ready to face. And when I found this out, it kind of like shifted a lot, you know, some positive, some negative, you know. This has been the year where I've had to face a lot more depressive episodes than I've had in my entire life. You know, I'll never forget it. There was a couple weeks ago where I went to visit my fiance's house and I was just out of it. I was zoned out. I was just deep in, like, thought deep in and I couldn't get out of it. It was just on and on and on, and I was just like a couch potato. It sucked. But this was also a year of really great successes. You know, I got engaged this year.
Wow, yeah.
And I found a job that I'm very proud to be a part of this year. And I've been able to get closer to my family this year. I've been able to make a lot of new friends this year. I've been able to make more connections this year. I've been able to help people out. You know, one of the biggest, I was actually sharing with Kayla last week. We were talking about what we were going to talk about this week. I shared that one of the biggest things that I'm proud of about this year is that I've actually seen the change in some of the peers that I work with. You know, I've seen them grow from being shy people to people who express their emotions and are actively sharing their stories to help other people. You know, I have a peer who makes music, and he shares his testimony, if you will, or his story through his music. And I literally hear it and I'm like, oh my gosh, bro, this is amazing. I have peers who, you know, suffer with a different array of things, and today they're doing a lot better because they put in the work and they put in the effort and they did what they had to do and they practiced their wellness tools, and I saw it. And honestly, for me, that's a great success. Yeah. You know, it's because it's not because I feel that I was the one responsible for their win. No, it's more of the fact that I was able to kind of point them at the right direction, and that, as a person who's deeply inspired by people trying to better themselves, is a huge thing for me. So yeah, it's a lot of wins, a lot of losses, but overall, I think, reflecting back, I'm proud of the person I am today. Even though I make mistakes, even though I do things that I'm not proud of, I'm proud of the person that I am, because above all else, I've been able to, like, help people.
That's so awesome. What would you say is your greatest lesson of 2023? If you can sum up, like, one of the greatest lessons you had.
As a person who struggles with ADHD, fast is a big part of my world. You know, I millions of thoughts in my mind keep rolling around on a constant basis. I'm moving this place to this place, this place to that place, all over. So taking things slower,
Mm,
I think, is the
that's
biggest
good.
lesson for me. This year, I really had to learn how to it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one of the biggest mottos for me this year was it's okay to not be okay. It's okay if it's a little messy right now. It's okay if it's not in perfect order the way you hoped it was. You know, I uh, I equate a lot of to movies. Everybody knows that I'm a movie guy, but I was watching this guy's end of the year review, and he said, "This year for me was learning that." Because since he's a movie reviewer, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to leave my Christmas family party to go to see his movie. That I can review it and for the people." Like, and he stated, like, for me this year was learning how to be okay with that, not going to that, and it's okay if I didn't catch that movie because I was spending time with my family, or it's
Yeah.
okay if I didn't see that one because I was with my friends or with my wife, and so I really took that to heart. What he said is like, it's okay. It's okay if you didn't get everything done. It's okay if you weren't able to figure everything out this year. There's always next year. And as long as you're surrounded by people who support you, you're going to be able to figure it out.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. What about you?
So for me, I've had so many highlights of the year, and just like you talked about, like every year I think is filled with highlights, wins, losses, growth, struggle, challenges, and all those things. And I think that for me, 2023 has really been a year of restoration for my family, which has been incredible and remarkable and miraculous. By God's grace, we've come together as a family, me, my son, and his father. And so that all happened this year, which was like utterly shocking, yet so like incredible, and that's been such an amazing experience for our family. But I've also gone through different challenges in like my leadership. I've also gone through a lot of growth opportunities, building teams that for us, for me, like the work that we do, I believe is world changing work. And so it takes world changing people, a dream team, and the stuff we do is hard sometimes. It's so worth it because, like you said, when you get to watch lives be transformed and communities healed, it's so awesome, and it makes you want to continue to strive for those things. But there's times where it's difficult and it's hard, and you really do have to lean into your support and lean into yourself and your capacity, and utilize every situation and circumstance as an opportunity to grow from something and as a lesson. And I've had a lot of really great lessons this year. One of them, it was to slow down, because I too have realized that ADHD isn't far off. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree with my son having that diagnosis. However, I've learned to slow down and prioritize the things that are really important this year, which is for me family.
Yeah.
And so that has been something that I feel like my family has benefited from. I also have learned to go after things that scare me, and to go after them with the faith. And that has been something that's been so awesome. It's allowed me opportunities that I would have never thought, but they're dreams that I've had stored up in me for like a really long time that I'm starting to see come to fruition. And so, that's why I think the end of the year review and setting your intention for the new year is so important, because there's so much opportunity and possibilities. And I think sometimes we don't slow down enough to see what it is that our hearts really desire, and what our purpose is and how we want to spend our time living. Another thing I realized is that I don't know, how life is. None of us know how long or short our life is.
Yeah.
And I went through this year, a family member getting diagnosed with like a stage 4, like death sentence of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the process of somebody deteriorate so quickly was so like revealing for me, that like you never know what can happen. And so it made me recognize how important our time is, and how much I wanted to focus on how I spend my time. because, you know, life is short. And so I want to know that I lived each day, you know, like without a regret.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say that because I think that you can't live each day like that. It's really hard to live each day like that. So I have balance in that, but it means that like the things that I say, like, will this matter next month or will this matter next year? It's like letting that go and focusing on like what's really important, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said there, the focusing on what's really important. Because I think a lot of people can share in that, in the idea that overthinking a little bit too much about, you know, the impact that's going to be tomorrow, right? When we haven't even figured out today. You know, I think that's the burden of a warrior, is not a warrior, a worrier, which is we just overthink and we forget to work on today because we're so stressed about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's I just want to share with anybody who shares with that. I want to remind you that you're not alone in that. You know, a lot of people struggle with this too, and there's ways to do it. And at least for me, what has worked is depending on my support systems. You know, depending on the people around me that really care about me. So I would definitely recommend that to you if you're that kind of person who's kind of like, it's 2023, it's almost over, I still haven't figured out my life. It's okay. You know, depend on the people around you. You know, 2024 is another year, and it's going to be a year full of opportunities. It's going to be a year full of downfall, but it's also going to be a year full of uprise as well. You know, it's like a roller coaster. I always love that analogy of the roller coaster, right? Life is like a roller coaster. Sometimes you got to go up that crazy hill and wait for the drop, right? And then when it drops, it's really fun, but then you got to keep working back up, right? But then it's the other way around, right? With a bad roller coaster, which is like you go down and you're like, oh, I didn't like how that felt. And like you have to work back up and try to get out of it, right? So, but the important thing is that in all of that, remember that it is a ride after all. You know, it is,
sure.
it is something worth being in, you know? I think any roller coaster aficionado would agree with me in saying, like, no matter how good or bad it is, it's worth it. Roller coasters are fun. Same thing with life. You know, no matter how good or bad it is, there's always potential to be better and
to find joy.
In it, and life is worth it. And now that 2023 is almost over, it's a new opportunity to kind of like look at life and be like, yeah, there were things that I maybe didn't accomplish this year that I really wanted to accomplish, but hey, it's a new year. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to try to get it done.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And I think when we I like to look at life as a journey and not a destination.
Yeah.
And that's because I think there's so much power in the journey, right? When I point to my growth, I most often point to my failures. You know, when I point to my breakthroughs, I most often point to the brokenness that led to those breakthroughs because it's all valuable. You know, it's how we view it. It's the perspective that we have towards it. And when we look at our life in review, it's not to look at it and say, oh my gosh, you suck. You didn't hit this goal that you had or that goal. No, it's to look at it and say, you know what? This is where I'm at. This is what I've experienced. Maybe I missed the mark here, but I learned that I missed the mark because for me, I'm a major procrastinator, you know, and that's something that I have to work on. So there's value in looking at it in a perspective to say, how can I grow from this? You know, and that's the type of mindset that I like to have is a growth mindset, which which means it's not fixed. It means it's not that because I did this and I didn't achieve this goal, I suck. It's more so of looking at it, you know what, I didn't achieve this goal, but this is what I learned from the process,
right?
You know, and then you make that new goal. But also what I wanted to talk about is New Year's resolutions, right? Because that is like the hot topic. Everyone talks about New Year's resolutions. And I think that this is so like pertinent to what I'm talking about with growth, because I think that when we have a growth mindset, and that one is a little bit more above a goal-oriented mindset, then regardless of whether we hit that goal or not, we are going to choose to grow along the way. And I think when you're growth-oriented, you'll hit the goals anyways because you're just growing. So what do you think about like New Year's resolutions? Have you set New Year's resolutions? And like, have you set New Year's resolutions that you set in January or right before the new year, and then like by like the second week of January, it was like over?
Well, that's kind of my problem, is that I don't like setting resolutions. And the reason is because I'm the kind of person that, like I said earlier, I overthink a lot. So me thinking like, I always exaggerate too. Like I had a I had a buddy of mine in California. He told me, "Yeah, man, for this new year, I'm gonna hit the gym 5 days a week." And I'm like, 5 days a week? I don't know about that. So it's
Yeah.
like, um,
Well, for somebody who's never walked in the gym before, yeah, that's like, I mean,
it's a lot.
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, but resolutions for me personally, I don't like to do those classic like, oh, I'm gonna give me a man's, or I'm gonna get a six pack, or I'm gonna buy, like, for me a resolution, it's kind of like you said, is like I think of it as goals. What goals do I want to accomplish in this new year? And I don't see it as a like I gotta get my stuff together and figure it out tomorrow. Like, no, it's a process,
Yeah.
So and I think a lot of people, when they make resolutions, they don't see it as a process.
Right.
They see it as a like something I got to get done on January 1st.
Yeah. Well, there's a hype about it. I think there's like okay. So I think motivation is really good. And when we hype things up and we're like, yeah, everybody, like, the quote on every year, the quote is like, new year, new me.
New year, new me.
Right? New year, new me, which is great. I think motivation is awesome. But when motivation doesn't come with consistency, discipline, or a support system, it makes it really hard to follow through on.
Yep.
And I think that's what happens. So all that to be said is I think it's super important to set a New Year's intention and to set goals and to think about, what would I want to accomplish in the new year? But now you have to really actually put thought and intentionality into it.
Right.
So if it was like, my friend was like, you know what, I've never been to the gym before. I want to get into shape. I really want to get healthy. I'm going to set like a New Year's resolution to start working out. My suggestion would be start small. So join a gym, right? And say, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym 30 minutes a week, right? And that means I'm going to start, January 1, and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out for 30 minutes. And I'm not going to do this crazy extensive workout, but maybe what I'll do is I'll get on the what's the thing that you walk on?
Treadmill?
The treadmill. Yeah, I never use those. But the treadmill, right? And then
Kayla's getting those gains.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But you know what? When I first started working out, I did get on the treadmill. So because I started small, and I didn't know how to use like weights or like what motion and all of that stuff. But when you set smaller goals, it's more achievable, and then you don't feel as discouraged when you're saying, like you said, your friend was like, I'm going to go 5 days a week. What happens in the first week when he only goes 3? Usually what we do as humans is we're like, dang, okay, I didn't do it. And then we kind of get discouraged and we kind of fall off. But if I'm setting small goals and then I'm achieving them, I'm going to start to feel motivated and encouraged. Right. That 30 minutes might turn into an hour next week. And if you did it for an hour, then you went above and beyond your small goal.
Right.
And so when I think about setting goals in the new year, that's how I think about setting those intentions, is start with the small if it's something you've never done before, because you have to know there's a process to becoming good at anything. So
yeah, I think that can go to anything really. Like I know a lot of people whose New Year's resolution is to learn an instrument, and like you can apply that same idea into that. Everybody wants to learn how to shred like Slash on the first day, and I'm like, no, it takes time. I've had a couple of people that I've taught guitar to that they tell me the same thing. It's like, oh man, bro, I want to do those solos like those. I'm like, did you learn your scales this week? And they're like, no. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, buddy. That's kind of the basis of it, right? So it's in anything that you do, I think that can apply. Obviously I come from the music background, so I'm like thinking like, what could be your first goal? Well, maybe start with buying a small guitar. Not a $637 guitar, not a $1,200 guitar. Try like a little 200 guitar at first, start learning how to do chords, start learning strings, and maybe start small like that, and eventually you'll get to that point.
Yeah.
Same thing with anything really.
Yeah, and I think if you're struggling, if you're somebody that's struggling, so any of you viewers, if you're struggling to say, I don't even know where to begin with setting goals, because that's true too. Sometimes we're like, well, I don't even know what kind of goal to set for my life. Well, what I would do is, again, start looking and reflecting at your year-end review, but then think about your values, right? Think about the things that you value most, because now you're getting to know who you are and the things that actually drive you. And when you think about those values, you can set goals based on what you value. So if you're somebody who's like, you know what, I'm not really sure what kind of goals to set, but I do value family. well, then you can set a goal around family and family time, you know, and what you do with your family. If you're somebody who is, you know, right now in a financial situation where you're like, man, and I feel like everyone is always like, I want to get my finances up, you know. I think the new year is always a good time to start, you know, is like, you know what, let me look at a budget. Let me look at, you know, what I'm making versus what I'm spending, and let me focus on, you know, building in like a saving routine. You know, taxes come every new year. And I think that sometimes we don't put so much intention into, okay, I'm getting kind of, for some people that get back a lump sum of money, what am I going to do with this money? How am I going to be intentional and create good spending and saving habits? So there's so many things that we can talk about when it comes to, you know, starting out the new year and making those resolutions. But I think the plan and the follow through really comes from intentionally thinking about these things, setting it up, creating a system, having support and accountability, right? Like me saying to my friend, say, you know, hey, Christian, these are my goals. This is what I'm planning on doing. This is how you can support me as my friend, or whether it's your partner or your children, depending on what those goals are.
Yeah. Yeah. I like all of that. So let me ask you this question, kind of switching up to the conversation a little bit. What would you say is like, think back at a couple years ago, maybe, what would you say is like the hardest resolution that you've ever set yourself? Because I'm thinking like there's a couple people there who are like really like hard on themselves, and like, this year I did this horribly. Like I'm gonna next year I'm gonna be the best at this. You know. So what would you say is like the one of those ones?
I have one. So I set a New Year's resolution to make like a certain amount of money in a year, which was really hard because it was like way over what my salary is. And I like set this, that in this year I'm gonna make this like really large sum of money. I don't think I really put too much thought and intention into it, because like the reality is, but this is what's cool about it, is that it did like set kind of like forward like a goal for me to say, you know what, like I can do this. You know. And it's funny because I actually still have that like on my mirror, because it actually has shown me the amount of growth that I've had since setting that goal. And so even though I set that goal years ago, I'm actually reaching, like I see myself reaching it. And I think that I've kept it there because of that. Because although I beat myself up because I was like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe you set this crazy goal like in 1 year. And I was like, just not, like I wasn't even in the position to be like making that kind of money.
Yeah, Kayla wanted to get $1 million a week. That's what she wanted.
Yeah, well, I actually have a goal of like being able to give away $1 million. You know, and
that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's cool because I watch my progression. And it's just a reminder of just like that. So even for those of you that like do set this like outrageous, amazing, like, you know, goal that you're just like, okay, this is like huge and big and whatnot and scary. What is it? The big scary, they call it the BHAG, the big hairy or audacious goal.
I've never heard of this.
You've never heard of that? They
I've
call
never
this
heard of
like,
this.
yes, this is like a thing.
Really?
So it's like a goal that's like so big that it's like scary and hairy and audacious. I don't know where the hairy came in, but that's what they call it.
The only thing that's big and scary and hairy is my father, so I don't know about that.
Oh my
Sorry,
God,
Dad.
so funny.
Leave it in the comment. What is it?
Yeah. But it's cool because you know what? That can be your motivator. Don't let it be something where you, again, beat yourself up over it. I've kept this on my mirror for years now, you know, and so now I'm looking at just my growth, again, because I've become growth-oriented over goal-oriented, that my growth, I feel like because I'm growth-oriented, each goal that I hit, like, I am celebratory and I'm like, man, this is an accomplishment, but it's like, no, you got to keep going, you know, and for me, it's not necessarily about like materialistic things as it is about like the things that are near and dear to my heart and building my character through the process of being growth oriented.
Right. Okay.
What about you?
For me, I don't think I've actually shared this with anyone before, now that I think about it. At least I've shared it in the context of like it's something that I want to do, but never in the context of like this was one of my New Year's resolutions. A couple of years ago, when I was living in California, my friend Jerry and I, we would dream about making a movie, you know. So that year, specifically when we started, it was a summer, we started making like these little shorts on our, only for us on our phones. You know, we never really posted anything, but we wanted to. I put a resolution. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to write a script so I can finally make a movie with Jerry.
That's so cool.
Sure enough, I wrote the script and then I moved to Florida. So I was never able to make the movie. The script is somewhere in my Google Drive, but it's still, you know, maybe it's not a quote unquote resolution for this next year, but I definitely want to do it with Jerry at some point. You know, it's a goal, a life goal.
Yeah, it's your big, hairy, audacious.
Yeah,
goal.
My big, hairy, audacious father. I'm he's gonna get mad at me. I'm sorry, Dad. But that's kind of been the big resolution that I've had for the last few years, is trying to see how we can make that happen, you know. And I have a couple friends who are telling me like, oh, I know this producer who makes like actual movies. He just won an award over in Italy. I'm like, I'm not that official yet, bro. Like, relax. But
in the making.
But yeah,
in the making.
Hopefully one day. But yeah, it's a resolution that I've had for a while. I'm a big fan of film. I'm a big fan of horror film, to be exact. Sorry. So it's like, I don't know. It's something that I really want to do. But now that you mentioned like setting up goals and stuff like that, like I realized like a goal that I could set for myself this year is maybe take a writing course or a writing class. You know, try to get better at writing. I've never really sat down and had a course where they kind of teach me the fundamentals of, this is how you should write a script. This is how it should look like. You can make it whatever you want, but this is kind of the core of it.
So what you're doing right now, Christian, is your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal, is to complete that movie, right? And now you're thinking of, what are the things that I can do in 2024 to support that goal? You know, and that's really what it was about for me with that whole big goal that I had, was like, what are the things that I'm doing to support that? And that's where the growth is coming, right? And so that's kind of the thought process behind reflecting and then setting those goals, but then also thinking enough not to just set the goal, but what are the things that could help me reach that goal, you know, and starting there. Because whatever you accomplish in 2024 to help you reach that goal, man, that's 1 foot forward. Like, that's what matters. And so when you do your year-end review in 2024, you can put down, like, these are the things, you know, that you were able to do towards that goal that may be achieved in 5 years, right? But it's just something looking forward that gives you kind of inspiration, hope, and motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. So one day, hopefully, you know, Steven Spielberg, if you're hiring, you know. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good spot to close out. We want to wish everybody a very, very happy new year. We want to thank everybody for the immense support that you have given this podcast. We've reached our goal, you know, and that's we're still celebrating that.
We are.
We wanted 200 views, and we got, I think it's at 1.5 right now.
Yeah.
1.5
See, we set a
thousand.
smaller goal, and now we've exceeded it abundantly, which is so
Incredibly,
awesome. And it's all because of you all who just watch and tune in and join us for Talking Wellness. Yeah,
and we set a goal of 50, and I think we're at 52 last time I checked. So we hit it, you know, and that's, for us, it's huge, because we've been so I know Kayla can speak more on this, but like, I know we've been trying to get this podcast out for months now. So to be here and to be in a place where we can do it, and where we have the immense support from South Florida Wellness at Work to help us push this, you know, and we have staff who are constantly be like, hey, yeah, it's awesome, I listened to it. I had family and friends this past holiday season. They asked me, they knew that I posted on my personal Instagram. They're like, hey, you're on a podcast, right? And I'm like, yeah. Like, oh yeah, I followed you guys. I'm like, oh, thank you.
That's
you
so
know?
awesome.
So it's like, we even had family and friends supporting. So it just feels like a community effort, and that was the goal.
That was the goal.
When we had our first meeting on how we're gonna get this done, was to make it a community, you know, to make it a family, you know, a wellness family. So we hope that you're inspired. We hope that you continue to follow this journey, and most of all, we hope that you continue to stay well.
Yeah, absolutely. And set those goals. Set your goals for the year. Every year I like to pick a theme, right? And it could be like 1 or 2 words, and that's going to be like my theme of the year. So maybe I'll share with you guys in our next episode what my theme for 2024 is. But I hope that you guys can share in the comments and let us know what your theme is. So
Yeah, for sure.
as always, it's a pleasure, and we will see you next week on Talkin' Wellness.
Well, we'll see you next year.
Oh,
Bye, everybody.
right. Bye.
We miss you, Michael. We love you.